Just a little bit of background here, so you guys have a little more on us. I've been up in this neck of the woods since 2003, so I'm here about 12 years now. Joe has been with us here for 5 years.
I've been here
5 years.
Basically 3, top 3.
He's been a game warden and wildlife officer for over 10 years between Colorado and Utah. You do whatever you want. All right, mountain lion, Felis concolor. That's the scientific name of it. This is an old partner of ours named John Murphy, a mountain lion that we were trapping. I explained to you the things we're going to try to accomplish tonight. What this is not, just so that you are aware, is your opportunity to start shooting arrows at me from the back end. Okay? We can talk about management. We can talk about how we do things. The biggest thing is to provide you with information. The reason that is things sometimes get a little out of hand between email and Facebook. It's like going into a third grade room and playing that telephone game. You ever done that? Some of you were in third grade a while longer before we were. Some of you might have been there for a while longer than some of us were. Joe especially. Okay, so we're going to talk about biology just to begin with. First of all, it's most of the western United States. Anything that has a little bit of elevation, some trees, some shrubs, and anything in between. Once you get east, they're not out farther into the shrub or the deciduous forest as much. You have a little bit down in Florida. Anybody know what we call those? Florida Panthers, right. Somebody's a hockey fan at least. So, you're going to hear a bunch of different names up here. Cougars, catamount, puma, panthers, mountain lions. They're all the same thing. It's just kind of whatever floats your boat. Our researcher likes to say cougar all the time. Drives me nuts. I don't know why. You'll be able to know his slides when you see them. But that's where they exist. Now, you'll have a few outliers that go here and there, but they're all over the western U.S. Just a physical description so we don't get as many golden retrievers called into us. There's some reddish-brown color. You can see that. Sort of tan, lighter on the bottom side. They really vary in length depending on how old they are. This is up to 8 feet long. That's really stretching a lion. I mean, that's from me to Joe. That's us doing the Gumby thing on it. In Colorado, a big lion is over 200 pounds. What's the biggest lion you guys have heard of? Our general rule, this goes for bears as well, you tell us the size, and usually it's closer to about half of it. So we get a lot of calls about 10-foot bears that are 1,000 pounds, and that's probably a little too much. It's more like 5 foot and 300 pounds. With lions, what people don't realize is that their tail is about a third of their body length, sometimes a little longer. So when you add that length up, somebody will say, yeah, I have this 7-foot lion. Well, probably 2.5, 3 feet of that is tail. What you don't realize is that until you get your hands on them, has anybody ever handled a lion here? No, nobody's out there wrestling. We have one in the back. Are they real big and bulky? No.
Very slender, very thin.
Very slender, thin animals. People think they're huge until you get up to them, and when they're laying flat, you can have a 200-pound cat. If he's laying shoulder on the ground, shoulder up, he's maybe about that high if you lay him flat. They're very, very slender animals. And that comes into a little bit later when we talk about tracks. The females tend to be littler. A big female is going to be pushing 150 pounds. They're usually not that big. Males, quite honestly, most of them, a big adult male will be 150, 180 pounds. Yeah. Okay, lion habitat. Everywhere. Let's just say that. When they're talking about the tropical stuff, that's when they're referring to Florida. Sometimes down in South America, you'll have different kinds of big cats. The big thing here that I want you guys to key into, we'll talk about it later, the keys for good places for lions are adequate prey and suitable cover. Okay? Two very important things when it comes to you being an evergreen. Behavior and longevity, they tend to be solitary. Has anybody heard the talk about this herd of lions that's running around Highway 1? So, in all seriousness, probably what you're seeing or hearing about is a female that has its teenage kids that won't get out of the stinking house. A female might have twins. After about a year or two, she's probably having more kittens. And those stinking, I guess they go to 26 now and still get health care insurance. They're not leaving, right? She's trying to get rid of them. When you hear about multiple cats in a group, most often it's going to be a female, a mother with her little ones. It's not a pack of lions. They're not like a bunch of coyotes that are going to go out and roam and try to just mow down things. You probably have a female with some little ones. The other thing that means is she's trying to teach them to hunt. And sometimes what you'll get is siblings that have gone out and they don't know any better, so they're buddies, they're hanging out together trying to learn how to hunt, or learn the ways of the world. So that's generally the case when you hear about more than one cat together. So for those things that you're hearing about out there, I've seen 3 or 4 lions. This is what it is. All right, they're generally elusive. I want to hit on that. Who's moved to Evergreen in the last 5 years? Hey, we got a fair number of them, right? Had anybody seen elk before they came to Evergreen? Okay, when you stopped on the road or wherever, wait, let me back up. Who's seen elk other than Evergreen and Estes Park or Rocky Mountain National Monument? Okay. When you stopped on the side of the road and you started looking at those elk, real quick, what did they start doing? Skedaddling, hightailing it, boogieing? I used to have a partner that worked up here named Nick Gallowich. And he was in Fairplay before he came to us, and then he went back to Gunnison. He used to say, I've never seen elk like this until he came to Evergreen. Why are the elk in Evergreen different?
They're used to us.
They're used to you, right? You're exactly right. They stand there and look at you. They come up on your porch and eat your flowers, right? They figured out how to knock the birdseed out of your feeders. So when you get these generations of animals that grow up in the neighborhoods, especially in Evergreen, you think they lose a little bit of fear of people? Yeah. It's no different than mountain lions. In Evergreen, lions are not as elusive as they would be in other places, simply because they're acclimated to people. Would I prefer that every time a lion sees a person, they run away? Yeah. It'd make life a lot better. Would I prefer if every time an elk saw people, it ran away? Yeah, it'd make life a lot better. That's just not the case here. Evergreen, Estes Park, Rocky Mountain National Park, that's kind of the situation we have. So, while I can say they are generally elusive, it doesn't always hold true. They're still darn elusive. How many people have actually seen a mountain lion here? All right, we've got some hands. Okay, how many, who's seen it more than 5 times? Seen a lion more than 5 times? Okay, got a hand. So really, it's not that often. Those of you that have seen a lion 5 times or more, man, that's pretty special, actually. People pay big money to be able to go to do that. All right, this estimated population, just so you guys know, lions are super hard to get a hold of. We don't generally go out and count all of our lions. We have some models that we do based on mortalities and roadkills and what we think reproduction is. But I can't tell you that we have 4,732 lions. We have a pretty good estimate. What I can tell you is that this area is really good lion habitat. Front Range of Colorado probably has a higher density than most places, simply because of the habitat. Okay, so the main prey source in Colorado is mule deer. I have some statistics for that a little bit later. Keep that in mind, though. There's a few other things they like to eat. Elk is the other big one. There's a few other little critters. Has anybody ever heard of a cache? A cache is where a lion has killed something. It's going to try to bury it. I don't know why. Don't ask me. It's just how they work, how they were made. So they'll kill something and they will try to cover it with sticks and dirt. There he is. Sticks and leaves and whatnot. And they'll work on that over the course of a few days. So if you see a cache on your property, so if some little kitty comes and kills a cat or a deer out in your yard, if it's not moved, you can expect a lion to be around for 2, 3, 4 days. They'll eat on that and then they'll move on. All right. Does anybody believe this? It's true.
Yes, totally.
It's true. So a mountain lion, think of it as a really big domestic cat. I don't say house cat. I put house cat initially and I thought, nah, because people are going to think they're going to start petting them and they'll purr at them. Okay, my friend Will here, this is Will Spence who just walked in. He has some cats up at his property to keep stuff under control, mice and things like that. When I drive up his hill, it's like a flash. There goes that cat. How often does it sit out and hang out with me and let me see it? None. It's going from one place to the other. Or it'll sit in a spot and watch me. Or on a cold day, it'll sit out on a rock and sun itself. or it'll creep around the edges of the hay bales and try to snatch a bird that comes down. Bird killing cats, is what that is. Anyway, these are no different. You'll see a mountain lion out sunning itself on a rock like this on a day, middle of the day. People will say, I saw that lion in the middle of the day. Is there something wrong? No, it's just a cat. It's just a cat. I've talked to people who have seen a cat while they're driving down the road, and they'll say, it just sat there and froze and watched me. Yeah, that's what cats do. Just think about a cat that you see at a farm or at a ranch or something like that. This is the same way they behave. Same way they hunt as well. Mountain lions are considered ambush predators. We're going to talk about this in depth more, but think about your cats that are out there trying to get mice and birds. Have you ever seen a cat just kind of laying out in the garden and waiting for that silly little bird to land on the ground and it'll jump out and get it? Same thing with a mountain lion. It's lying in wait for a deer, an elk, a fox, a skunk, something like that. And that's how they operate. They're nothing more than a great big domestic cat. So when they look at you funny and tilt their head or maybe lay their ears back, that doesn't mean that anything dangerous is imminent. It just means it's being a cat trying to figure you out. Evergreen now. Do we have anybody that's a realty or something like that?
Really?
Yeah, they usually have an idea how many people are in Evergreen. It's kind of a strange thing.
Depends on what's, where you read.
Yeah, it depends on what Evergreen is.
20,000 to 30,000, depending on how you track.
Yeah,
We agree to spread that out.
that's a lot of eyeballs, right? So there's a lot more people seeing cats. Where I grew up, it's really good cat country, really good lion country. That's where a lot of lion hunting happens. But I never saw a lion when I was a kid, and you didn't hear about it in town so much. Here you got 30,000 people packed into a relatively small space on the Colorado Front Range. That's a lot of eyeballs to see stuff. So your sightability goes up, if that makes sense. All right, territory. Some of this is a little bit rough. Just like regular cats, they need scratching posts, right? And they spray and they stink and all of that stuff. You'll hear people that know the smell of cat spray, of mountain lion spray. And they'll talk about hiking and being able to pick up on the scent. I can't do that. I can't smell it. Some people do. This dispersal age, 1 to 2 years, that's that 20-year-old cat, in our terms, that just won't get out of the house. Mom is trying to get him out because they got more little ones on the way. That cat just won't leave. So, again, that goes back to when you hear about these herds of lions that are roaming the countryside. It's a mama and a couple kittens. Yeah, and we'll catch what we think is about a 2-year-old lion, and it'll be 80 or 100 pounds. You can usually tell, well, you can tell, if they're sub-adult or adolescent, you can tell by the barring on their legs. You've seen the cats with the spots and the stripes. They lose those as they get older, and you'll have a cat that you think is a full-grown monster adult, and you'll get in and look, and it's got barring on the inside, which means it's still a juvenile. They just had National Letter of Intent Day, signing day. Anybody follow college football? A few, There's these 18-year-olds going to college that are 6'5" and 300 pounds. They're still a dumb kid, right? Same thing in here. I don't know if you trust them. I guess they can vote. They can go to the army. Okay, so mountain lion tracks. When I talked about how slender their bodies were, one of the things you can pick up if you're looking at tracks in the snow is they tend to put their paws more in line than other animals because they're so slender. Their shoulders just really rotate funky. You can see a big mountain lion track, and I mean a big mountain lion track is about like that. Most of the time, they're going to be closer into there. Okay, 3 inches, 3.5, maybe 4 inches. It'll depend on the size of the animal, obviously, whether it's young or old. If you have kittens, they'll be smaller, but they'll usually be with some bigger tracks, mom and kittens. I'm curious about your observation skills. What do you notice about these prints?
Retractable claws.
Yeah, no claws.
Amen. Right here. Okay, now go back. Remember I said they're house cats, right? They're domestic cats. They have retractable claws. They only come out when they need to grab onto something, okay? So if you're looking at tracks in the snow or in the mud, and they have claws, what does that tell you? Dog. If I had $1 for every call I've gotten about these huge mountain lion tracks that turn out to be a golden retriever, I'd be a very, very wealthy man. A lot more than working for the state. But I get a lot of calls from people that are convinced they have a lion running around their house, and it's their neighbor's dumb dog they keep letting out. All right, so you can see, that's us on a lion that's sedated. When I say sedated, really asleep. I really promise you there. And we're squishing his claws out. It takes a lot of effort to squish those claws out. They're really in there. All right, little comparison. So this must be some ding dong from the East Coast that called this a puma, right? You know, if you're a hunter and you're talking to somebody from the East, they talk about 10-point bucks, you know, or 12-point bucks. Colorado, they're 4x4s or something. Same thing with pumas and mountain lions. You can see a bobcat on the left, same thing. No claws, right? And then you have the coyotes and the dogs. If you see claw marks in the track, you're looking at a dog print. So this is the most common time that you're going to encounter a lion. Somebody just seeing one hanging out, it might be in a tree. I get this call several times a year, a lion under a deck. For whatever reason, they decide to hold up. But most often it has to do with a cache. This is an elk deer. This is that a lion is killed when it's covered with snow. Now you can, depending on how good your sense of smell is, you can get up close to that cache and tell how much it's been eaten on. Or you can let it be taken care of in a few days, or you can drag it out to the road, and county road and bridge will think it's roadkill and take it away. Just saying. This right here, I go on this call several times a year. And it's really funny. People don't get this. Remember, I told you it's just like a domesticated cat. I had a call in December over off of somewhere over there in Highland Hills. Can't remember, with the Aspen Place or something like that. About a lion under a deck. People were scared to death. And I got there, and there was like 6 deputies and 18 people, and they're all standing around, and they wanted to see, and they were cowering behind their house and looking. And, we're usually one place or the other. It takes us a long time to respond just because of the distances we usually have to cover. So I walked up, and everybody, oh yeah, there's the lion. All we did was got a hose, sprayed it, and it ran away. Do cats like water? No. We sprayed the darn cat with a hose, and off he went. Deputies went, oh, is that it? Expecting some kind of show. We were going to hog tie that thing or something. Okay, so these slides are slightly different, so I could remember that these were our researcher slides. They got the lines, that way I remember. So we're going to, for those of you that are in the science world, or kind of academics, I call my sister an egghead. This is for you. So we've had a mountain lion project going since 2000. You guys know when it started? 8? 9?
Before my time here.
2008?
We're into the 8th year.
8th year? Okay. Where we've actually been going out, our researchers have been going out and catching mountain lions, or fitting them with GPS collars so we can download their locations every 15 minutes or half an hour, whatever it is, and track them. There's a number of reasons we want to do this. Part of it, we want to see their response to getting hazed, if we have to come haze them. Part of it, we want to see their home ranges. We want to see where they hang out. They're going to go in and look for there's clusters of hits to see whether they've killed an animal and they're eating on it or whatnot. We can get a better idea, a picture, if you will, of what our lions are doing. So, to date, they've captured 79 lions, 43 females, 36 males. You can see how many are still going with the collars on. And then they've captured 16 kittens or cubs along the way. Some of those they've collared, some of them they can't. If they're really small, you can't put a collar on them because they're going to grow, right? You don't want to choke them out. So they've gone in and they've been able to recapture some of them, put collars on, but look at the data, see what they're killing. It's a really interesting study. So far out of that, we have 55 mortalities. I actually counted this up. His math is right. He did a lot of statistics classes and he was able to add to 55. The interesting thing in this, 14 of those are roadkills, right? There's a lot of lions that are hit on the side of I-70. People don't really realize that. 21 are human interactions. That might mean hunting, or it might mean a rancher who has a lion coming into a sheep or something like that. I guess hunting's going to be the next one. So the human interaction might be us having to put a lion down. Intraspecific, what that means is lions killing each other. And that's what a picture of this one is. And then 3 natural. I don't know if they got emphysema or what, but they just kind of died and we didn't really know. It's kind of interesting data to see that. going to the home range question we had earlier. He didn't give me a legend, but I've seen his presentation before, and I think, and you guys correct me because I know you've seen it too, I think the dark polygons are males. Is that how you guys remember it?
Yeah, I believe so.
And the red polygons are females. Okay? What that means is usually a male will have a bigger territory with several females inside of that territory. And then the females might have kittens. The males usually will kind of stay apart. You can see at least on the south end, Idaho Springs, Genesee, Evergreen. They're pretty separate, right? They don't usually cross into each other. My guess is some of these other ones that you're seeing where they're crossing, this is simply a guess, tie guessing here, is that they might be some juveniles that have yet to establish territories and been separate. The question about how big their home ranges are depending on their prey, you are exactly right. So a lion is going to go where the groceries are, right? So if there's fewer deer stretched out across the landscape, they're probably going to have to cover more country. If there's more deer and more elk concentrated, they got to do a lot less traveling, right? You guys can see where this is going, I hope. Has anybody followed chronic wasting disease? Let me ask that question. We go on a side note. Anybody heard of it? Okay. It's a disease that we've seen crop up in deer in the last 10 or 15 years. At least it's on the radar. We've researched it. It probably has been here in some smaller percentage in the past. The hot spots for chronic wasting disease are west of Boulder, extending up into Fort Collins. One of the theories behind that is that the deer population is artificially dense there along the Front Range. There's a number of reasons for that. One of them is it's really good habitat. Number two, it's really good artificial habitat because all the people that are living there, think of all your petunias that you've sacrificed over the years. You provide a lot more resources. And number three, they're not hunted as much, so you get these artificially high densities, right? Where do you see a lot of lions? Right where that really high density of deer is. Okay? All right. Again, for those of you that really like this stuff, our researchers, when they got the clusters of those sites, and when their GPS collars are saying they haven't left this quarter mile in the last 3 days, 4 days, they'll actually go in and try to see what's going on there. So 44% of the time where they had these clusters, they were feeding sites. On those feeding sites, 68% were deer, 13% were elk, 19% others, and you can see the other in there. And then there's scavenging. It was kind of funny. I thought this was like a shameful thing. He has a slide in here about everybody does it, which is kind of goofy. Like it's shameful for a lion to actually scavenge, but I can't find it. Anyway, predation of deer, lower in the winter and spring, late winter and spring. It kind of shifts. The deer, as it gets later spring, they're getting ready to fawn, have critters. They spread out. During the winter months, December, January, February, when deer are a little bit more congregated, they're going to hit those harder. As it gets into March, April, May, it'll switch. And then, interestingly, in the summer months, May, June, when the fawns hit the ground, that's your easy opportunistic prey item. So their prey goes to the fawns. Feeding events per year. On average, 93 feeding events for the lions that he captured over the course of a year.
Per animal.
Yeah, per line. So that comes out, we used to say about 1 deer a week. That's a little closer to 2 deer a week. So you can imagine that takes a lot of work, right? And if you only ate 93 times a year, you'd want to make sure you ate all of it, right? I would, anyway. Scavenging, this is where it is. They all seem to do it. It's like it's a shameful thing. I thought that was funny. Does everybody know what we're talking about when we say ungulate or cervid? Let me do a little science. What's that? Deer and elk, yeah. So you'll see some notations in here to non-cervid or non-ungulate. That means something like a fox, a coyote, a skunk, a dog sometimes. We'll talk about that. All right. Management. You can see this is one of our collared lions. Best thing we can do with management is education. So doing presentations like these. Just last week, Will and I were in King Murphy Elementary School helping the children do lion drills, which is really funny. It's good, but you tell a child, put your hands up, walk backwards, and what they do is go, ah, and they all run. But mostly it's just understanding, right? It's having an idea of what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. Secondly, we use hunting. There's intentional line hunting. People will go out and hunt lions. A lot of people don't know that. It's kind of a niche hunt, but you do it. The way they do it traditionally is to use dogs. So key into this one. Lions don't like dogs, right? Cats don't like dogs. It goes back to that domestic cat thing. Lion hunters will find a track in the snow. You do this in the winter months. And they have hounds, lion hounds, that are trained specifically to follow the lions. And the lions will run up a tree at some point, and then they'll hunt them there. When people say, why don't you just go chase down and trap one? Well, first I got to have lion hounds, right? Secondly, I cannot control where that line's going to go. So every piece of private property that lion decides to cross, by the letter of the law, I have to get permission. Do you see how logistically that's impossible for us to do that? So next time you hear somebody say, well, they ought to just go catch that cat, run it down and trap it. It's not so easy. Okay, opportunistic hunting, people will just happen to see one. They'll have a license and they'll take a lion. Trap and or euthanization. By the way, let me make this mention. This is in order of our priority on how we are able to manage lions. This is our step-by-step process. So down here on number 3, trap and or euthanize, okay? It's not easy to move a lion, so if we trap them, most often we're going to euthanize them. Primarily that's due to some kind of agricultural purpose. A rancher having a lion get into a sheep or something like that. And then finally, a trap and relocation. That's mainly when lions are in the urban or metropolitan area. Tim probably has more experience in that than any of us because he spent 12 years down in the metropolitan area. How many lions do you think moved? A dozen in 10 or 12 years? The other part of it is that lions, they'll key into things sometimes, not always, it's a rarity, but sometimes they'll key into things. So a lion will figure out the sheep are really easy to eat. They're dumb, they stand there, they say bah. So if I trap a lion where there's a big sheep herd and I'm going to move it a couple hundred miles and dump it off and there happens to be other sheep herders there, what's that lion going to do? Cause more problems. The other thing to add to that in trapping a lion, in every case except for 2 for me, when I've actually caught a lion, we have to use bait of the animal that it's recently killed. So, sometimes that's easy if it's somebody's goat and they don't care about it. There's not a lot of people that like me to use the remains of their golden retriever as bait. A lot of people think they're dogs or are their children. I'm not going to pass any judgment on that. They don't like to see their dead dog hanging in the back of a trap. I've tried it with a hunk of meat. It doesn't work. Okay? I can get the best filet mignon and throw it in a trap. I'm not going to catch a lion. You almost always have to use the thing that they've just recently killed, right? I assume everybody's heard about this probably on a Facebook page or an email chain. There might have been something in the newspaper, I'm not sure. There was. Awesome. I love the newspaper right now.
I read.
Pay no attention to the pictures. Okay. So, there's 2 kind of hot spots right now. The Witter Gulch, Snyder Mountain, Echo Hills area. Anybody come from that neck of the woods? All right, we have a few. Thank you for coming.
I hike there all the time.
What's that?
I hike there all the time.
Okay, so it's up to you guys to spread the word now, right? Okay. Oh, wait, how many attacks have there been? Let me just get a census here.
That's why I'm here.
Perfect. There have not been 40 million attacks. The lions are not walking 12 abreast down Upper Bear Creek. Okay? All right. In mid-December-ish, there was a dog killed by a lion in Circle K. Okay? That person never actually called us, but I happen to know the neighbor of the person whom that happened to. So, we know there was a dog killed on Circle K in mid-December. That was a while ago. January 16th, one dog was likely killed. So one dog was likely killed off Stanton Road. This lady called it in. She had let her dog outside, and a scuffle ensued, and she was able to find blood in the snow and nothing beyond that. Was it likely killed? Probably. We don't know, but that's a safe bet. So we're up to 2. Okay? On January 20th, this one generated an email that probably a lot of you saw. One dog was chased and attacked off Snyder Mountain. And that scenario, a woman came home at night, let her dog outside, and I don't think she has a fence, I'm not sure. The dog ran off. Pretty soon she heard some scuffling. The dog came running back, as the dog should. The lion was behind the dog, so she turned the dog back around, which chased the lion. Lion ran off, right? Good lion. Cats and dogs don't mix. And then she was able to come in the front door with her dog. Dog did have some scratches and whatnot. Yeah. On either the 21st or 22nd, it's a little fuzzy because our details are off as far as when we got the call. But we did have a dog attacked off Circle K. Again, that was somebody that came home at night, let their dog outside. This particular man, if I recall, doesn't have a fence. Dog went running out there. Dog and lion scuffle ensued. He was able to get the dog back with some fuss, separate him and bring him in. That dog had some injuries as well. That's it. That's it for actual dog attacks. There's been other calls. You know, I've seen cats here. I saw one off the side of the road. I saw one, you know, out back somewhere. I've seen a cache. We actually got a picture of a deer that was killed off of Golden Willow just the other day. It's right down the road. So, unless they haven't called us in, we know other sightings and cats around and things like that, but those are the only attacks that we've. Cats are curious, right? So it's not uncommon for a cat to follow somebody or something to look at. My godfather. So I'm gonna tell you a Western Colorado story. Some of you will appreciate this, some of you won't, but I'll tell it anyway, just to give you an idea about lions. My godfather was a professional lion hunter for a while. Not a lion hunter, a professional coyote hunter. Goofy as that sounds. And the way he would hunt coyotes is he had a little noisemaker that made the noise of like a dying rabbit. Again, weird, it's okay. A dying rabbit call, I'm not sure who made that, but somebody has. So he's sitting out in the snow in full snow camouflage, okay, playing this dying rabbit call, and he's looking for coyotes to come his way. He's not seeing any coyotes, and pretty soon he catches some movement out of the corner of his eye, but he's still looking, and he hears this whoosh, 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 and he's still watching for coyotes. One never comes. As a lot of those guys hunt, they'll hunt for 15 minutes, stand up and go away. So he stands up, turns around, he's in full snow camouflage, and there's a line from me to you from him. And the lion is kind of crouched down and looking at him. All right? They're like a big domestic cat. So this lion is hearing the dying rabbit call, and he's thinking, cool, free lunch. And he went back and tracked it, and he's been crawling along, and then it made 3 big plunges and stopped about 6 feet from him because the lion went, that's not what I thought it was. And it sat there and looked at him. Now, 2 things. If that lion wanted him, it could have had him. The second thing, did that lion want him? No, not at all. Once that lion figured out that he was indeed a person, was not a dying rabbit or anything else that was nice like that, wanted no part of him. He stood up, actually physically poked it in the chest with the barrel of his rifle, and the lion went on his way. So that kind of puts the hair on your neck up a little bit, but there's a reassuring story in that the lion does not want the person, okay? The lion does not want the person. They're curious, just like a house cat. They will check you out, but they don't want you, okay? We have a lot of lions around. I will guarantee you, if you've walked around Evergreen, a lion has watched you play there, and very well could have. Let me get into some of this other stuff here, so I make sure to cover it. All right, what is not true? Has anybody heard about us following 4 different lions in Witter Gulch, and we came and shot one off somebody's porch? There's some email. False. Please come to us for the source. We'll tell you what we did or did not do. All right, Haiwan Hills in Haiwan. Here's what we have. Several deer and up caches around. Okay? Multiple sightings. And probably that huge herd of lions that's running the road. To my knowledge, and I'm not saying this is the perfect information, to my knowledge, I don't know of any dogs that have been killed. Are you guys aware of anything in Haiwan?
No.
Okay. I know there's a lot of concern because they're real visible right now. These lions are real visible. But so far, from what I can tell, they're doing what lions do. They kill deer and elk. And they're catching them, and they're eating them, and they're running around being lions. All right, again, just to give credit where credit's due, somebody in Evergreen took this picture. I don't know who they are, but I want them to have credit. Okay, so why are we having more sightings and incidents? Everybody wants to know why. Why are we having it? First thing, it's wintertime. What happens in winter? Well, we get snow, and snow makes the deer and the elk tend to congregate. You guys see the big elk herds this time of year. The deer tend to congregate. They go to lower country if we get snowpack. Doesn't seem like it when it's 60 degrees in February. Tracks are more evident in the snow. If it's dry ground out there, you're not going to know that a lion just ran through. But if there's a fresh snow and you walk out on your driveway, and, oh my gosh, there's lion tracks in my driveway. He's probably been there all year. Okay, now you know it because there's snow. When there's snow, lions are more readily visible, right? You saw the color of that lion, the different lines we've had up here. They blend in really well to the grass we have here. But if you get a snowy background, your eye's going to pick up on them. I guarantee you, you've been around Evergreen, there's been lions that have watched you. I don't say that to scare you. I'm just trying to say they're here. So you've seen them, they've seen you. You see them a lot more in the wintertime, okay? All right, feeding wildlife. When we were at King Murphy last week, we said, how many of you guys feed deer? Yeah, all the kids wave their hands. my daddy puts corn out every day. He calls Fluffy by name, and one horn comes over, right? Okay. People feel really bad for deer and elk in the wintertime. Why, I don't know, but they do. And they feed them more in the wintertime. Our two big calls this time of year, that if it's not something hunting related, it's a lion or it's somebody feeding deer. Fair to say?
Absolutely.
Okay, those are our two big calls this time of year. We have a database of people we've talked to. Oh, this person off such and such blah 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 drive has been feeding deer, and we've talked to them 4 times, and now we're scratching tickets to them. It's against the law. There's a lot of reasons for it. And then these deer, when you feed them, or the elk, you get these artificially high densities. Remember, we talked about that with home ranges. You get the artificially high densities, you get more lions, you get more kills, you get more visibility. That's their job. So, increased incidence. To be honest with you, anecdotally, I don't think we have increased incidence. What happens is we get kind of hot spots, if you will, every winter. Last year it was in Cold Creek Canyon. Sometimes it's over off of 285 in Conifer. Just so happens that this year it's in Witter Gulch, where we have an elementary school, and it's generated a lot of talk, and in Highwan Hills. Both have really strong community forums, email chains, and things like that. Do we have a high amount of incidents? If we have 4 dog attacks in about a month in Witter Gulch in the wintertime, do I like it? No. Is it out of this world? No. It's nothing I'm panicked about. My kid goes to King Murphy Elementary, and I had a mom going, aren't you scared to send your kid there? No, get out on the playground and play. Quite honestly, a lion's not going to want to run into 300 screaming children. Have you ever been there? They want nothing to do with it. So, it's not out of this world. It just crops up, and usually it has to do with a young lion that's camped out somewhere trying to learn how to hunt. That's usually what it is. Okay. So, I'm going to keep harping on this. This is a big one. Do not feed big game. Do not. If you want to put country buffet in your lawn for the lions, I'm not going to have a lot of sympathy for you, okay? If Danner and Dancer and Blitzen and whoever get eaten in your front yard because you're throwing corn out every day, I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for you. I'll come out and help you, but I'm not going to feel real bad for you. If you're bringing the problem on yourself, then you have to correct that behavior, okay? Number 2, take greater care of your pets. I'm not calling you a bad dog owner for kicking your dog out at night. That's not what I'm saying. Just be a little more careful. Do not let your dogs run free. Most often, I would say 80 or 90% of the time, it's a dog. There's no yard or fence. The person kicks them out to do their little toity out there or whatever. And about 15 minutes later, they come back to the door and yell for the dog. The dog will come back in. And lo and behold, Fluffy doesn't come back. A lion will come over fencing. However, it's less likely if you have a fence. if you're providing some kind of barrier, your likelihood of having an issue goes down. Okay? I'm not going to sit here and tell you if you put a 4-foot fence up, you're going to keep lions out, because you won't. They don't keep elk out. They don't keep deer out. But if you have a fence, you're more likely to keep your dog in, and you're less likely to have the lion come into your yard. The only way to keep a lion from getting your dog, if you want to leave your dog outside, is to have a fully enclosed kennel. Top, sides, and whatnot. Now, is a 6-foot fence better than a 4-foot fence? Yeah. Is an 8-foot fence better than a 6-foot fence? Yeah. Lions don't want to work. How do I say this? I'm getting toward middle age. I'm not there yet. But I know a lot of middle-aged men that would rather, order takeout than fix their dinner. They'd rather have somebody go to the fridge for them instead of go to... What I'm saying is they'd rather do things easier than work harder for them. So if you provide more barriers, if you provide a little bit more effort, you're going to be better off. All right. Remove hiding cover in and around your property. So talking about kiddos. Going back to the idea that a lion is an ambush predator. That means they're going to come behind this bush and go behind that bush, keep behind these rocks. Now, not all of us have excavators to move the rocks, but we can cut the brush down. So if you have brush that encroaches up into your yard, cut that back. Lions aren't going to run a quarter mile to chase something down, or even 100 yards. They're going to lie in wait, if you will. So if you can remove that cover where they have a lot of open ground to come, then you, again, greatly minimize it. All right, we're getting close to the end here. Encountering a lion. Stay calm, right? Easier said than done. Do a little self-talk. Stay calm. You run into a lion. Hi, little putty tat. He's not that big, right? Stay calm. Okay, do not run. Remember we talked about domestic cats. If you have a cat with one of those little obnoxious laser pointers and you run the laser pointer around the ground, what's the cat do? If you roll that ball of yarn across the ground, what's the cat do? Same thing with a lion. In the cases where we have human attacks, which are very rare, and we're going to get to those numbers here for just a second, it is almost always a person that's running or biking down a trail. It's that chase instinct that kicks in. Almost always that's the case. Okay?
Not walking.
Not walking. No, not generally. But if you see the lion,
Stop.
they're ambush predators, right? So if I sit there and stare at you, he's lost that element of surprise. So if I keep watching you, and I can back away, he doesn't have that ambush. Okay? You don't want to turn around and run away.
Quick question.
Talk calmly, firmly, back away slowly, let them know who you are. Think about my godfather, the professional. So you're going to be pretty good.
Okay.
All right. Leave the line an escape route. Do all you can to appear larger. Put your hands above your head. Raise your coats, raise a cane, something. Be big. Fight back if the lion attacks. Now, the reason I say this is I don't know that there's enough data out there to say there's a study. But in the cases where somebody has been attacked and they're with a partner, Joe and I are out running, and the other person intervenes and starts to punch that cat in the nose, the cat lets go and goes away. Now, can I say that's going to happen 100% of the time or 90% of the time? No. What I can tell you is in the cases where that's been documented, mostly in California, that the cat let go and went away. So be brave. Easier said than done, but there's a great case of two ladies mountain biking in some really high scrub brush in Southern California. And the cat grabbed the one woman, the other woman took her bike, started beating the cat with it, the cat let go, and everybody lived. Except the lion, he died later. But it's your life. If it happens in the extremely, extremely minuscule chance that it was to happen, why wouldn't you fight back? Okay? All right. Let that sink in for just a second. There have been two confirmed deaths to people in the history of Colorado that we know of. Some people argue for a third. Let's just be generous and say there's 3 people. To take nothing at all away from the tragic deaths that these people had, and I don't want to minimize it, you got a heck of a lot better chance of getting injured or killed driving here tonight than you do from a lion. Now, what this hits home with is one of these happened just down the road in Idaho Springs. Okay? And again, I don't want to take anything away from that. Many of you were probably here when that happened. What was it, 1991-ish? And just a little background, as a high school kid, cross country, running behind the Forest Service office, okay? Tragic. I don't want to take that away. But there's been 2, okay? You probably have had a family member die this year, right? Or you know somebody who's killed in a car wreck. Or you've heard about the murders in Denver. In fact, you're better off up here than in this stinking place, right? Okay? You moved up here to Evergreen for a reason. You all are here by your own volition. You wanted to be up here out of the mess. You wanted to be out of the people. You wanted to be in the wildlife. You wanted to be in the mountains. You wanted to breathe fresh air, right? Some of those things come with being up here. If you want to move down there, you put bars on your windows, you lock your car, you lock your doors, you're suspicious of everybody, you don't talk to strangers, you don't let your kids outside. Which life would you choose? You're here for a reason, right? You're here for a reason. And I want to just give you numbers. Some people like stats, some people don't. You chose to be here, and so there's certain things that you have to work through. You don't put your trash out at night because you know what's going to happen. Dadgum stinking bears are going to get into it the next day, right? You don't spend too much money on your petunias. Why? The elk are going to eat them, okay? Take a little more care of your dogs. Take a little bit care about feeding your wildlife, and you'll be a lot better off. Did I have a question back there? Any other questions before we get out of here? Just before I answer those, somebody asked about phone calls. If you feel like jotting that first number down, that's to our office, our customer service folks. If you need to get us after hours, we actually dispatch the Colorado State Patrol. The folks in Clear Creek County have been a little bit frustrated because they'll call 911, which will transfer them to the sheriff's office, which will transfer them to State Patrol, and if it's between 8 and 5, then they get transferred to our office down in Denver. If it's an emergency, 911, something big is happening, please call. But these are the numbers to more effectively get us. Yes, ma'am.
So my take